Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age as well as Zone Coverage and BringMeTheNews.com. My co-host is Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age. And we do this every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. If you miss us, we're available in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, rate, comment, like, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Adam, what's going on, man? I know you like trivia, so I dialed something up for you today.
All right.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I might have cheated already, so yeah.
Oh, you might have already Googled it, huh? That's why you don't put it on the outline normally, because then you could just Google it and pull a prominent member of Vikings Twitter.
It took me a while to find it though. I might have a different answer than you. So
no, well, there we go. All right, let's see what we got here, because I did some research. Hendon Hooker was mocked by Daniel Jeremiah in the first round of his latest mock draft. Hooker is 25 years old and would be the oldest rookie taken in the first round since Hayden Hurst in 2018. Can you tell me which former Viking was also drafted in the first round at age 25?
it would be Mr. Terrence Newman.
You already Googled it, so I mean, you're just milking it at this point. Either my internet froze.
Did you hear me?
I did not.
Did you hear me?
No.
Oh, I said
guess
Mr.
We're gonna do this today, but
it's Mr. Terrence Newman, formerly of Kansas State, cornerback.
Did you think it was Terrence Newman right off the bat? Before?
No, I didn't. I was just thinking of Vikings, and I saw you was a former Viking, so I'm like, oh, so it can be more than just. It didn't have to be drafted by the Vikings to be the answer.
Correct. Yes. So that was the curveball before you Googled it and cheated.
Luckily, I pay for StatHead or whatever, so I'm able to.
You pay for it too, huh? Just like it's a must-have to defend yourself in.
I mean, it's
Vikings
good for
Twitter.
Finding. It's good for articles as well.
Okay, so can you name the current Viking who was drafted at age 24 or older? Or did you Google that too?
That would be Garrett Bradbury.
That is correct. Google really is serving you well. You know, I was watching a video on Twitter the other day, and it was a basketball coach having his team. So they were all lined up and they were kind of just pacing in place, and he would ask them a question. And if they got the question wrong, they would have to go run. We used to call it a ladder. I think some coaches called it suicides, which might not be socially appropriate anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Up and downs, whatever they are, they had to run. Let's put it that way. So the question was, what was the original city that the Los Angeles Lakers were from?
Ooh.
And like the kids were just like, Los Angeles. One kid said Ohio. Another kid said SpongeBob, which is not a city as well.
Oh, that was that clip. Oh,
that was that clip.
I kept seeing it go around, and I just didn't click on it, but okay.
Yeah. Right. And the first kid looked like he was like 47 or something. I
wonder how many people like look at the Lakers name and are like, there aren't any lakes in LA. Why are they the Lakers?
And some people are like, man, if the Lakers, they'd stayed or whatever, they'd be the same freaking franchise. Like, come on. Like, people aren't, NBA players don't sign in Minnesota. It's cold. And then, when they come here, they're just like, I want to get traded. Yeah. Get me out.
Unless you're from Minnesota, it's hard to keep people here. I think that's why the Vikings had to give. I think they gave Marcus Davenport like a $1 million workout bonus just so he could come during the offseason and make sure that he's here.
It's gonna be 50 degrees. What are you doing?
It's like, dude, we need you here.
So anyway, outside of weather and stuff that you've already Googled, let's talk about mock drafts, because they're already out of control as we are just over a month away from the NFL draft. Like I mentioned, Daniel Jeremiah had the Vikings selecting Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker in the first round of the draft at number 23. No trade up or anything. solid arm, pretty mobile, 3,135 yards at Tennessee, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 69.6 passer rate, or not passer rating. That'd be brutal. Completion percentage at Tennessee. And as we mentioned, the catch, he's 25 years old and he is coming off a torn ACL. But wait, there's more. Another mock draft dropped yesterday as The Athletic had their beat writer mock draft. I believe this is the second one that they've had. Alec Lewis was manning the Vikings and traded up to select Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. Levis completed 65.4% of his passes, threw for 19 touchdowns and 10 interceptions at Kentucky. He has experience in a pro system and worked with Liam Cohen, who also ate at the altar of Sean McVay alongside Kevin O'Connell. They might have shared food or something. I don't know. Or they cross streams in Vegas. I don't know how that really works. Vegas also traded the Vikings also traded the 23rd, 87th picks in this year's draft, along with their first round pick next year. So let's start here. If the Vikings were to do either of these moves, would you be okay with it? What are you thinking when it comes to, these mock draft prognostications?
Well, first off, I think I'd be okay with either one because it would mean the Vikings are moving forward, moving on from Kirk Cousins. They're taking a step, to find their next quarterback. So that's would be one reason I'd be fine with it. Yeah, with Will Levis, who's only a year younger than Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, he'll turn 24 a month after the draft. I think in June or something. So
okay, so that's always funny to me. Like people will be like, you only be able to get 10 seasons out of Hendon Hooker, but then you can only really get 11 seasons out of Will Levis. So like, it's not too much of a difference. But okay, I can hear the age thing too. But Will Levis, I would say, has a higher ceiling than someone like Hendon Hooker, just because of his abilities, his arm. I think he just like rockets the ball wherever, fires it in there. He does have experience in a more of a pro style offense. He does, like you mentioned, he does have that experience with Liam Cohen, who worked with Kevin O'Connell on the Rams. So there's obviously a connection there. I'm sure he's talked a bunch with Kevin O'Connell. I'm sure Kevin O'Connell's talked a bunch with Cohen about Levis, and if he can be the guy to help them, in the future. The question I would have about that would be trading up, because the Vikings don't have a lot of assets and they need draft picks to help improve the roster because they also don't have a lot of cap space. So I would be, wondering, do the Vikings truly think Will Levis is the guy to be their next franchise quarterback? And are you willing to use, your first and third round pick and next year's first round pick on a guy who's not even going to play next year? So that's something that would make me hesitant to do something like that. Same thing though that goes with like Anthony Richardson or anything like that. I would have the same question. So it's not like specifically Will Levis. And then Hendon Hooker, I would be on board with that move because they didn't make a trade and they were able to get a quarterback without giving up anything. And with a quarterback like him, who he just tore his ACL in November, that fifth-year option that you get in the first round would be important for him, because it allows him, you get that extra year to maybe evaluate him. And then his numbers at Tennessee, they stand out. I know college football guys put up monster numbers all the time, but like even his numbers, like you don't see that touchdown interception ratio. You don't see the interceptions that low, especially when he's playing in like the SEC. It's not like he's playing in the WAC at Hawaii, where a lot of guys, used to put
R.I.P. Colt
yeah,
Brennan, though.
Yeah, or used to put up like huge numbers. But still, yeah, there's a lot of questions with his abilities to, progress or move through his progressions in a pro style offense, and but I was looking at a scouting report before I came out here. At first, I looked at Hendon Hooker, and it was a bunch of the stuff we've already been talking about. But then I looked at Jalen Hurts, who was projected to be a solid backup in in the NFL. And his pro comparison, I think it was on NFL.com, was Tim Tebow. And you just look at how far he's been able to progress in the NFL during his time in the league. Last year he was like the runner-up MVP, helped the Eagles get to the Super Bowl, performed very well in the Super Bowl. So I think looking at someone like that who came in the league with a lot of questions, you can compare that to Hendon Hooker and be like, okay, if you just get with the right system, the right guys, this could work out. And I think that if he was 20, let's say he was 23, I think people would be less hesitant to go after someone like that. So like throw that age thing out the door. And I think you could find more people who might be on board to get him. But yeah, I know the offense that he was in college kind of just scares people off because just like he didn't have to do a whole lot. He had like one read and then get it to that guy, and he relied more on his receivers to get open than he did on him getting the receivers open with his passes. So can he do that? We don't know. He could be able to do that. But we just don't know. And then if Kevin O'Connell thinks that he can get the most out of him, then I have to feel confident about that because I like the way that Kevin O'Connell has approached things, especially what he did with Kirk Cousins last year. You know, Kirk Cousins didn't have the best stats of his career, but I would say he had the best season of his career. So if he can do that for Kirk Cousins, not that he's a magician, he can turn like anything. He can't like take like, I don't know, whatever backup and turn him into an all-pro quarterback, but I think he can do what he can to get the most out of whatever he's given. So yeah, there's a lot of opinions on Hendon Hooker, and I don't, and there's going to continue to be. So until we get to the draft, I don't know.
Well, you probably got joy out of sending me that text Tuesday morning because it was mere hours after I ranted about not wanting Hendon Hooker.
I definitely did.
At age 25. There are a couple things that you said that kind of got me thinking. And the first thing that you said is, well, I would like it because they're moving on from Kirk Cousins. The Vikings cannot think that way. They cannot think, oh yeah, let's just take a quarterback just so we can move on from Kirk. Like that's how you draft Christian Ponder.
Okay,
the first 4 quarterbacks on the board, we need a quarterback. Let's go take Christian Ponder. Or, oh my God, we need a center. Let's go draft Garrett Bradbury.
Yep.
Like they need to get the right guy. The problem I had, you're sitting here going like, well, if age wasn't a thing, but it is. He is 25 years old. If he was 23 years old, he would be a top 5 pick. Well, he's not. He's 25 years old. And when you look at the age thing, I mean, Levis isn't that much different. Yes, I'm concerned about drafting either of these guys, not only for the age, but I mean, Levis, some of his throws were kind of like, what are you doing, guy? Like, they're behind. A lot of his interceptions were his fault, as we, talk about fault a lot in Vikings Twitter. Like, is it Kirk's fault? Is it? No, they were his fault. They were bad throws. I did a little research, and it's going to be an article at zonecoverage.com. And Hooker is 25. Since the NFL went to so like using Will Levis as a baseline, 24 years old. NFL went to a 7-round draft in 1997. There have been 41 players that have been drafted at age 24 or older in the first round of that draft. 18 of those players were a primary starter at their position for 5 or more years, which I think that would be the barometer for success with a first round pick because it means you picked up the fifth year option, right? So we can roll with that. If you're 4 or younger, maybe you're just forcing the issue. It could be something like Garrett Bradbury, where it's like, well, we don't have anything better, so we're just going to keep trying them back out there. Between those 41 players, there are 19 Pro Bowl appearances, and Casey Hampton, who is 19th overall in 2001 at age 25, has 5 of them. Only 8 players made the Pro Bowl out of that group, which is a 19.5% rate. And I thought I did the research. I believe it's 323 players out of 923 made a Pro Bowl. So that's 34% since the NFL went to that format. Looking at quarterbacks, though, it's a different story. Quarterbacks aged 24 or older. 49 players have been selected in the draft. 3 of them have made the Pro Bowl. You have David Garrard, you have Ryan Tannehill, and Kirk frickin' Cousins. Give him a lifetime contract. He's going to play until he's 50, by the way. Like, just for this, give him a contract. 4 of those have been starters for 5+ years. And this is all rounds. Chad Pennington's the other one who joins that previous group. He was a starter for the Jets for 5 years. I hope he sends Randy Moss a nice little fruit basket for that career because I
don't know. He wasn't too terrible.
No. He just had a noodle arm and it was just like, all right, Randy, let's go.
Player of the year once? With the Dolphins.
Because he shredded his shoulder and then he came back from that, which made his arm even weaker.
Decent.
Hooker would be the oldest first-round quarterback since Brandon Weeden, the 22nd overall pick by the Browns in 2012. He was 28 years old.
He was 28.
Yes, that is bonkers. That is crazy ridiculous. And
of course the Browns would pick him.
Like, Hendon Hooker would also be the oldest quarterback in NFL history to be selected in the first round of the draft. There's Brandon Weeden in 2012, as we mentioned. 27-year-old Ernie Case was selected by the Packers with the 6th overall pick in the 1947 draft.
47.
And he would edge out Travis Tidwell, the immortal Travis Tidwell, who was drafted 7th overall by the New York Football Giants. And you have to specify in that era. That's how far back we're going in the 1950 draft. So what does this all mean? I just tossed a whole bunch of numbers at you, but contract scenario. You mentioned Jalen Hurts as as a comparison here, right? Jalen Hurts is about to get paid. He is going to be 24, or he is 24 years old. He will turn 25 in August. Hendon Hooker is already that age with no NFL experience or anything. If he's good, you're paying him at age 29, Levis at 28. And there's
you get a discount?
There's not much.
You get a discount?
Possibly, according to everything else, no, you don't, because Daniel Jones, they could run into whoever Ed Donatel is 4 years from now. They could explode and they could get a $40 million contract like Daniel Jones did. So, I mean, I'm not thinking there's going to be, if he's good at all, there's not going to be a discount.
But that would be good too if he's good.
But if he's mediocre, I mean, define good or you want to hit on this, don't you? Because if you get a quarterback in the mid, you're overpaying. You're in the same boat that you were with Cousins. So you better hit in the early years of those contracts. Like Anthony Richardson's going to be 26 years old when he gets paid. Lamar Jackson is 26 years old right now. I would rather invest in.
I think he's even 25.
Yeah, he's 25. He's going to be 26 week 1 is what I'm getting at. Yeah. I would rather, especially looking at Levis, trading those 2 first-round picks, I would rather go sign Lamar, call the Jets, because apparently that Aaron Rodgers thing isn't working out so well. And, I don't know, maybe they have a trade in place and Aaron Rodgers like, I will announce it when I am ready. I will go into the darkness and I'll drink bleach for a month. And
he's going to climb. He's going to make the announcement. He's going to climb the top of Mount Everest and then make the announcement.
Yes.
From the top.
While on drugs. I would rather invest in Lamar Jackson than draft Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, because it's not going to be a high draft pick. Like if you take Hendon Hooker, like you're just reaching. And you mentioned the scheme thing too. It's like everybody talks about Jalen Hyatt and they're like, oh yeah, well, Josh Heupel just schemed him open the entire time. He's not actually good. Okay. What does that say for the quarterback then when everybody's wide open? The guy sucks under pressure. He's 25. He listened to music on cassette tapes. I mean, give me, like, I'm not saying like you have to draft this 20-year-old super specimen of an athlete, but somebody like this, there are red flags everywhere. And people are out there saying like, well, this is a safe pick if you take Hendon Hooker. The hell it is. Like, I mean, he's 25 years old. He could get to the NFL, throw a couple passes and be like, oh shit, we just burn a first rounder on it. There is risk with every quarterback in the draft. There's a risk in taking CJ Stroud. The Panthers have their balls on the line after trading up all those picks, but hell, they might trade down because they're idiots. Like I'm getting flustered here. I can barely talk. Like, don't do it. Don't take Hendon Hooker at 23. I don't care what his stats are. What do you think? What he could become? I mean, No, 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 no.
What about the 5th round? What if he's there in the 5th round?
Well, and you're looking at quarterbacks. I think I have, well, like I said, I just told you the list of quarterbacks in the later rounds that have made Pro Bowls or
Right.
even been starters. Like it's 4. It's literally 4 quarterbacks that age who have panned out.
Brock Purdy's just ruining it for everybody because everyone's like, oh, we can just get Brock Purdy now in the last round. I'll give you some age stats that I was looking at the other day. There are 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks who started their first game in the NFL at the age of 25 or older. They are Warren Moon, Jim Kelly, and Kurt Warner.
So you're basically hoping you find Kurt Warner. Because Warren Moon and Jim Kelly played, I believe Warren Moon played in the CFL and Jim Kelly played in the USFL because he didn't want to go to Buffalo because it was cold.
Yeah, because he's from Miami or whatever.
Wound up working out very well for him though.
It did.
Yes.
It did. But still, it's a different. The USFL and the CFL are not the NFL,
right?
So it's maybe it might be a step up from college, but it's certainly not all the way up to the NFL. But then you have Kurt Warner who played in Arena Football, NFL Europe, and then landed a job with the Rams. And I believe Trent Green also is someone who started his first game after the age of 25. But then the Rams were able to kind of figure out an offense that would suit Kurt Warner well. I don't know how his attributes compare to Hendon Hooker or whatever, but there have been success stories in the NFL of older quarterbacks. I think Jeff Garcia is another one. He wasn't awesome. He wasn't amazing, but he had some good years in the NFL. So there are some success stories as far as age goes. But yeah, I think the biggest question with Hendon Hooker would be his transition from the offensive system that he runs in Tennessee to the NFL, because I was listening to a podcast or whatever, they were talking about him and how the system is really it's more about the wide receiver's job to get open than it is for Hendon Hooker to get the receivers open with his throws. The receivers basically just run choice routes the whole time, and they just go to an open spot, and Hooker has to just find them. So it's good that he can find them. That's an attribute that you can take into the future. But is that going to really translate to the NFL? Because cornerbacks or safeties or linebackers will pick up on that quickly and just be like, oh, I'm just going to go over to this zone because you're going to throw it because it's open, and then I'll just pick it off. But then again, you have someone like Justin Jefferson who can get open whenever he wants. So that's something you should think about, or people should think about as well. I would have a lot of questions. I'm not gonna say I'm totally on board if they were like, let's get Hendon Hooker in the first round. I would have a ton of questions. I'm not gonna even lie about that, but and I do agree with you. Don't draft a quarterback just to draft a quarterback, because you could even go back to Laquan Treadwell when the Vikings needed a receiver in
2016? Yeah, because that was the first year of US Bank Stadium.
Right. So they got Treadwell, and that was because they just needed a receiver, because they didn't. That was before Thielen became Adam Thielen, and they thought they needed a receiver, and they went with Treadwell, and he was a disaster. Somehow he's still in the league. Kudos to him, I guess. But yeah, you shouldn't. And with Bradbury too, I think a lot of people had him rated as a top center prospect.
They did, yes.
So it's not like the Vikings were like, wow, somebody got the top center, so we got to get this guy. So that wasn't totally their fault. But yeah, I would have a lot of questions with Will Levis, with Hendon Hooker, with Anthony Richardson. I think this quarterback class, there was a lot of hype going into this pre-draft process, but I think this quarterback class, it really isn't that great. It's a lot of hype, not necessarily maybe hype, but just you're hoping these guys achieve their ceilings, and they haven't really done that yet in college. And people are looking at guys like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen and being like, well, we can do that. They did that. Why can't Anthony Richardson do that? Why can't Will Levis do that? And you can look at guys like Baker Mayfield, drafted at number 1, who's struggling to get a job right now. He's going to have to compete in Tampa Bay to get a starting job. Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, like all
Remember
these guys
where we
were like,
were last year too? Like we were just sitting here just like, oh my God, look at Malik Willis at his pro day. He's blowing up.
Yeah.
Like Kenny Pickett, also age 24 when he was drafted. He will be
correct. I was going to bring that up too. But
would you be excited with Kenny Pickett right now? Because I sure as hell wouldn't.
He looked good at the end of the year last year. I'll give him that. Excited. I didn't watch enough of him to give you a real opinion on that, so I wouldn't want to say yes or no. I would be more excited than I'm sure the Steelers. Part of their excitement last year was like, well, he's not Ben Roethlisberger, so like, it's something because Big Ben was there for.
That is the epitome of drafting a quarterback because you need a quarterback, though.
Well, yeah, like Big Ben was there probably 5 years longer than he should have been, and Steelers were just like exhausted by him just coming back and not being good. So they were just like anything. So I think that's part of it as well. But yeah, I think C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young are the top two guys. After that, I don't know. I don't know if the other guys are really going to be much of anything in the NFL. So we'll see.
We will see. Quick question for you before we move on. If there's a gun to your head and you say you have to take either Will Levis or Hendon Hooker, who are you taking?
Are both available at 23? Or are we going through? Are we using these scenarios where you have to trade up to get Levis and Hooker fall through at 23? Because that's important.
Let's say if they're both at 23, who are you taking?
Will Levis.
And if you have to trade up for Levis, who are you taking? So let's say you have to give up what Alec Lewis gave up.
Lamar Jackson.
100%. I agree with you. Lamar Jackson. Yes, that is the correct answer.
Yeah. There you go. That's my answer.
Just call the Jets, dump Kirk, and we can all move on with our lives. Somebody else that is moving on with their life is Duke Shelley. He signed with the Las Vegas Raiders this morning. Shelley,
cancel the season.
It's
cancel the
like
season.
I said to you, oh my God, how could he do this? Shelley was a practice squad pickup for the Vikings last season, ranked third in PFF's coverage grades, and allowed a 51 passing rating in man coverage, over 61 snaps though. So he didn't play a lot because Ed Dontel didn't play a lot of man coverage. 2 years before that, he allowed a passer rating over 100 in 2021 and 2020. I'm trying to do math in my head right now. How big of a loss is this?
I don't think it's as big as people might think it is. He had a great season last year, but the Vikings' pass defense was still terrible. So you have to put that into account. For the type of defense that Brian Flores wants to run, he needs bigger physical corners who can defend the run on their own and hold their own in man coverage. And Duke Shelley did well in pass coverage, kind of like shadowing guys that he was covering. But can he do that, knowing that there's no safety help? Can he do that? Can he step up and make the tackles consistently running back wise? And Brian Flores and the Vikings clearly didn't think that he could, or else he would have probably already been back with the Vikings. It's a great story. I'll be rooting for Duke Shelley, but I don't think it's a gigantic loss like a lot of people might be feeling today. Like, oh, the secondaries, it's done for. And it's like, no, the Vikings drafted Andrew Booth Jr. and Caleb Evans last year. They're invested in those guys, and they want to give those guys a shot to, reach their, develop more as cornerbacks. And they're not going to be able to do that if they don't play. So I think that's part of it too, because they have these guys waiting in the wings. And although Duke Shelley did play well last year, you're going to pick the guy you picked in the second round over him to start, probably. So
I'm interested to see what the cost was on this move, because
it can't be that
much.
No.
I mean, if it was like, I think somebody said like $4 million, like they projected. can't remember who
That
said
seems
that.
high.
Well, and if it were $4 million, I'd be like, yeah, thank you for your service. Go get your money, kid. I wanted him back as a depth piece because we've seen people get beat up. The Vikings depth chart at corner right now, it is bad. We have Byron Murphy Jr., who the Vikings signed in free agency. We have Andrew Booth Jr., who has not been healthy since high school, according to him. A Caleb Evans, who had 3 concussions last year.
Yeah.
Kalen Barnes, who is a burner that was signed to a futures contract, and Tay Gowan. I don't really know anything about him.
He was drafted by the Cardinals in like the 6th round, like 2 years ago, 6th or 5th round.
So there you go. The more you know.
And Chris Boyd's visiting.
I was just about to get to that. I don't know. Like, honestly, if Chris Boyd signs with the Giants, we need to just jump on this channel and just boot anybody who's on it, just to talk about the impact that Chris Boyd would have, because there is a locker room presence that he brings. He's funny, not like Kirk Cousins funny, where like he's like quarterback Ken. You can just put chains on him and then he's Joe Burrow or whatever.
He's a goofball.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Boyd, doesn't like tight buttholes either. That's his thing. But like if Arrowhead Addict's on here, we gotta jump in and be like, guys, I know you're talking about Patrick Mahomes and how many Super Bowls he can win. We need to talk about Chris Boyd right now, because this is just a seismic move. If Chris Boyd signs with the Chiefs, like that's when we gotta jump. We just gotta like barge right in there. Like, who's trying to get in the room? Oh, it's there. It's like, you guys have no idea what you got with Chris Boyd. Let me tell you that right now.
Hey, they took a chance on Mike Hughes. Maybe they like those Vikings corners.
Mike Hughes signed somewhere too, didn't he?
Falcons.
Now he's a journey. Mike Hughes was a Falcon sooner than Lamar was a Falcon. Who would have thought of that? But looking at that depth chart at corner, like, does this increase the odds that the Vikings are going corner in first round of the draft?
It's so weird because they signed Byron Murphy and everyone's like, oh, now they don't have to draft a corner. And then Duke Shelley leaves, and now everyone's like, oh, now they need to draft a corner in the first round. It's like, what? No. I don't think it increases or decreases it. I think the Vikings are going to probably add a corner with one of their first few picks. It doesn't necessarily have to be the first round, because, what if there's a run on corners like we just talked about? You don't want to draft a corner just to draft a corner. And you end up with someone who's not going to be that great, and you just use your first round pick on someone who's not good. And rookie corners, like, most of the time, they're not very good. They need a couple years to really become good in the NFL. Not everyone's Sauce Gardner, and he was, what was he, a top 5 pick? There's a reason for that. No, I don't think it increases or decreases it. I think they need to grab one anyways, whether it be the first, second, third round. Like, probably needs to happen within day 1 or day 2 pick. But first round, don't just draft a corner to draft a corner, because that's not a good way to work. And I don't think they will do that.
In my mock draft that will be released tomorrow at the Viking Age, or if you're listening to this in podcast form or even watching this on Friday, it's out today. Go read it. I waited until the 5th to draft a corner. So that probably will be an unpopular opinion. I don't know. Just check it out. Read it.
They could still sign somebody too.
They could. Yes.
It's not even April yet. They could still sign someone now. They could sign someone in the summertime. Like what? They signed Bashad Breeland in the summertime. That didn't really
if we're looking at that it doesn't really.
I'm trying to think if there's any other late players they signed in the summer that worked out. But no, they still have plenty of time, and guys could get cut after the draft. They could add to their roster. So they still got plenty of time to find someone to replace Duke Shelley.
How will they ever go on? How would they ever go on without CJ Ham as well? He gets a new 2-year deal, according to his agent. He's from Minnesota, if you haven't heard. Yep. Duluth. I guess he's now the flag bearer of that story. This is a takeover.
Chris Reed? Is Chris Reed from Minnesota?
His wife's from Minnesota. His wife's actually from Rochester.
Didn't he go to Mankato?
He did go to Mankato, but he's not from Minnesota.
Oh, but he's okay.
Yes. Okay. And yeah, his wife's from my hometown. But Kevin O'Connell's running game takeover is continuing to dominate the offseason. As we know, the Vikings signed Josh Oliver, who is one of the best run blocking tight ends in the game. They re-signed Alexander Madison to a 2-year deal, and Dalvin Cook is still on the roster, probably because he got surgery knowing that he was going to get $2 million to go under the knife. Smart business move. Like, yeah. Just touch on Cook quick. Do you think there's going to be more action here by the draft, or?
Oh yeah, because they're waiting for it. He can't pass a physical right now. So like they can't do anything right now anyways. People were like freaking out about that Friday or whatever, like was it last week? Where like people, it's the deadline. It's like, no, because he was going to get that money anyway.
The deadline was erased. That's why Pelissero said, yeah, he'll be on the roster. But
yeah, because he was injured. So he was going to get that money anyways, injury guarantee. Yeah, so I would expect something closer to the draft. I know the Bills are being talked about as a possible team, but they just signed Damian Harris. Not that he's gonna stand in the way of them possibly trading for Cook, but they'll have some takers. I think Darren Wilson was thrown out like the Falcons. The Dolphins were possibly a possibility, but they re-signed all 3 of their running backs. So they'll be like, what if a team wants a running back in the draft? Like they have their eyes on Bijan Robinson or something, and they don't get him. Dalvin Cook's not terrible consolation prize if a team wants to do that.
Could be one of those deals that drops on the Friday of the draft, where it's just like, okay, Bijan's off the board, we'll give you 3rd round pick. I don't even think they'd fetch a 3rd round for Dalvin, but I'd been surprised before by NFL trades.
What did Elijah Moore get yesterday?
He a second and a third. They gave up a 3rd to the Browns, and then the Jets got a 2nd back, and they're saying it's not related to the Aaron Rodgers trade, which just get it done. Like everybody.
And Odell's going there
too. Yeah, Odell's following Alan Lazard on Instagram. Still no Randall Cobb yet over there. Although I'm sure that's probably like the final Infinity Stone or something.
That's the holdup. Yeah, that's the holdup.
Just put Randall Cobb in his gauntlet, or actually, that's just like drugs. And
it's like it's either Randall Cobb or Donald Driver. You have to pick one of them.
Yummy, yummy, yummy. I got crack in my tummy. Is Kevin O'Connell's quest for consistency in the running game a good thing?
I mean, when the Vikings finish at the bottom of the league and short yard situations, and they led the league in negative yards or 0 gains on first down last year, I think it's one of his top priorities this weekend, just to be more efficient. That's what he's been saying. He wants to be more efficient. He's never come out and been like, we need to run. He's not doing the Zimmer thing. Like, we need to run the ball more.
30 carries a game.
Yeah. What was that stat that Zimmer, whenever we run 30 times, we're like 19-0. And it's like, yeah, because you're ahead.
Yes.
So that's why it works that way. But yeah, I don't think he's looking to like run the ball more, more just be efficient like that. And the addition of Josh Oliver would follow along with that. This extension for CJ Ham would follow along with that. Although I think the keeping CJ Ham around is more of a leadership thing in the locker room, and he's good on special teams as well. I think most of his snaps came on special teams last year. So, and I think we've learned in the past, like sometimes it's better to keep guys like CJ Ham around than to just get rid of everybody kind of that held your locker room together. I'm like thinking back to, I think it was 2018 when the Vikings moved on from Brian Robeson and Terrence Newman, and then they just really had nothing really to hold them together in that locker room that year. And I think that played a major role. So yeah, I don't think they're not gonna come out and be the Titans or the Zimmer offense. I think they just want to be more efficient, and especially just set themselves up better for 2nd and 3rd down, because there was a lot of times last year where the Vikings were in 3rd and 8, and they'd rather be 3rd and 3, because I think a lot of times they would score the ball and then they'd have these stretches where like they didn't score a lot, and that's why they had to come back. And 14 of their 17 games?
Yeah.
So they just don't want to do that. They just want to be more efficient.
Well, one of the things too that the Vikings encountered a lot, really over the past couple of years, is cover two, which makes like Kirk short circuit and throw a 3-yard pass on 4th and 8 with the season on the line. The best way to get out of that, the Chiefs figured it out last year, is to go 13 personnel with 3 tight ends on the field and a receiver and just kick the crap out of them. Alec Lewis, mentioned him. I think it's the 3rd time I mentioned him this podcast, but it was a good stat.
Clearly, you pay for the Athletic.
I do pay for the. It is my humble brag of the show.
I do too.
I pay for the Athletic. I got MLB.TV at the house. I'm excited for next week. And then like after a week,
ESPN Plus.
I do have ESPN. I got all the hockey games at my fingertips. The only thing I don't have is NBA League Pass, which seems kind of bizarre, but. I mean, I think most people have to choose between hockey and basketball anyway.
Do they have like, what is it now? Bally Sports or whatever? Do they have that in South Dakota?
Yes, but Bally went bankrupt, so we don't really know what's going to go on there. The other thing with this running game takeover is that I think the Vikings' best path to a better defense is being more efficient on offense. Minnesota ranked 29th in time of possession last season at 29 minutes and 5 seconds per game. Over the past 3 seasons, the Vikings ranked 16th in time of possession at 29 minutes and 38 seconds. In 2017,
Mike Zimmer's like,
2017. You want to talk about Mike Zimmer celebrating? The Vikings ranked 3rd in time of possession at 32 minutes and 7 seconds.
Eric and Latavia.
Yes, and they weren't breaking big runs, but they were consistent. They were just churning out, the Leroy Horde special, right? You need 3 yards, I'll get you 3. You need 5 yards, I'll get you 3. Basically, what they did that entire season, and it worked because it kept the defense fresh, kept them off the field, and they were top-ranked defense. So less snaps, more better things, because I mean, you control the time of possession, keep your defense off the field, and the defense is not going to be Brian Flores is not going to turn this into 2017 Vikings overnight. So they have to kind of bridge that gap, and a more efficient running game, whether it be with Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, or a back drafted. I am actually getting very enamored with, I think it's Dwayne McBride from UAB. Doesn't have a lot of work in the passing game, but he's very explosive and very good in zone rushing situations. I just don't see the Vikings drafting a running back when they have such few picks. Maybe if they trade down, he'll be an option, but and you have Ty Chandler too, who we really haven't mentioned, but I don't know. Like I said, as long as they don't go Tennessee Titans, where it's just like running the ball to cut, just to run the ball,
and they're not, because they have Justin Jefferson. They're not going to do that. They're not going to be like, hey, Justin, you know how you got the ball like 200 times last year?
We're going to cut that in half.
We're going to have you block this year.
You're going to be a blocker. We're actually going to play you at tackle.
We're going to give you a giant contract to block.
Did you see the Zeke Elliott play in the playoffs? You're going to be the center.
Yeah. Like, okay, you can trade me now. I just think they just want to be, like you said, more efficient. And I haven't seen the stats, because I know last year the Vikings led the league in 3 and outs. I'd be curious to see this year as well, because I wouldn't be surprised either. Like they scored a bunch of points, but there were still a lot of 3 and outs, and that was part of the defense, suffering as well, because they'd get a stop and they'd have to go right back on the field like a minute and a half later, and then they get gashed because they're tired.
Wasn't it the Miami game? They had like 9 straight 3 and outs or something ridiculous like that.
I think they went for a while without points. Luckily, Tua was not playing in that game, so that helped a little bit.
Yeah.
Or else that might have gotten out of hand. But yeah, I'd be curious to see those stats. I don't think they're on like PFF or anything. Someone usually just throws them on Twitter, like a graph. But I'd be curious to see those, because I think they'd probably be pretty similar, and I think that's an area that Kevin O'Connell wants to get rid of. So we'll see.
So we'll see how the running game improves throughout the rest of the offseason. But that's all the time we have for today. We do this every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We're also in podcast form the very next day. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. I'm Chris Schad. He's Adam Patrick, and we'll see you on Monday.